everybody, and welcome back to Nine Lives podcast. I'm so happy to be back for week 2 of the never-ending season, we'll call it. It's not season 3, it's just season forever. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. It was lovely to hear all of your feedback and to hear all of your stories. Please keep them coming. It was a big one to record for me, and it's definitely difficult to be that honest. So thank you for the lovely reception. Today, we are going to be talking about something that I have had a lot of requests to talk about, and it's something I've been through this year in coming full circle when it comes to finding my way with fitness and wellness again after a big step back. And it's this idea that anyone can be an athlete. Everyone is an athlete. You don't need to be an Olympian for sport to change your life. I've called this episode Depression to Obsession, which I really thought that was quite funky, that little phrase. And of course, that's a little bit dramatic. Not everyone is going to go from depressed to obsessed. Being depressed isn't great. Being obsessed isn't great. But I just thought it was a really nice way to sum up the journey that perhaps I have been on, and I think a lot of people will have been on if they've discovered sport later in life. And a lot of this episode is going to be about unlocking discipline for yourself in the face of apathy. And apathy is something I don't see discussed very often in wellness circles, because we speak a lot about depression and lack of motivation, lack of drive, lack of self-care, and then we talk of discipline, we talk of motivation, we talk of being really locked in. But in between those two things is a space that's like, I don't care. I feel apathetic to this. I feel like I don't care. And apathy is a symptom of people who are disconnected from their purpose or feel really lost in life. Certainly, I think I would rather feel very sad than feel apathetic. It's one of the worst things to feel. And when you do feel like you don't care about your future or yourself, it can be almost impossible to imagine yourself as an athlete or as someone who's into sports or as someone who looks after themselves, because you don't care. You don't care to make your bed, you don't care to brush your teeth, you don't care to get up in the morning. So how on earth are you going to go to a track and start training? And I hope today to kind of bridge the gap between those two places, and speak a bit about my own experience of training like an athlete. And, I use that word because I know that I'm not an athlete, and I have friends who are, and I know that there's a huge difference between me and them. But I think that in owning and accepting and embodying the athlete spirit in not just sport, by the way, I'm talking about every aspect of your life, it can be life-changing. And that obsession and drive, when used correctly and not in getting yourself into a place of burnout, like we discussed last week, that balance has always got to be there. And I'll discuss that. But it can be truly life-changing. And, we've spoken a bit last week about the mental health aspect of self-improvement and the spiritual aspect of self-improvement. And today I wanted to talk a bit about the physical and a bit about my renewed view on it, I suppose. I went to the Paris Olympics this year, and actually, when I had that experience, I wanted so badly to have the podcast to come and talk about it, because it felt like such an experience that I wish that all of you could be there with me to be on, because it was completely unbelievable from start to finish. I got an email, I think maybe a week before the event, asking if I would come, and it was with a brand called Pure Sport, who are friends of the show and are friends of me. They sponsor athletes. They sponsor people like George Mills, who they are Olympians, and they asked me to come to be at the Olympics, and I could not believe it. And I think I was there for 2 days. It felt like five. We did so much and we saw so many different things. Um, and being so involved and a part of a world and an experience that is centered around such incredible discipline and striving was so incredibly inspirational for me. I came to the Olympics in a place where I wasn't feeling very well in myself, and it was one of the most just inspiring places to be. I watched the athletics, so running, obviously, and I was obviously in tears watching these people, because if you are a runner or if you've ever tried to do anything extraordinary or brilliant for yourself, you'll know that yes, it's an amazing performance watching them run for 9 seconds or, I don't know, 12 minutes. You know that before that 9 seconds and 12 minutes is thousands of boring days of just getting it done and turning up to the track when it's cold and going out on your runs and doing your stretches and doing it when you don't want to do it. And in my mind, when I was watching these athletes, all I could think about was those moments and all the moments they didn't quit on themselves to get to the Olympics. And I kept thinking, that could be any of us. That could be any of us. And that thought just inspired this episode. And I was in my mind thinking, oh, I can't wait to speak about this because I have so much to say about the topic. But I think the shift is when we look at athletes or you watch them on your telly and you see like the runners or jumpers or, I don't know, archery, whatever it is, people often think, okay, but that's those people and those experiences are for those people. And I'm watching those people in awe, thinking that they're like a different race to me. They're like a alien race that doesn't belong to me. And sure, there are some genetic capabilities and being able-bodied and having the time and means to train and have these opportunities that set some people apart. But, you know, there are so many Olympians with stories of great overcoming of their childhoods and circumstances. And all I mean is that there is no difference between us and them. And your Olympics could be, you know, a rainy 6 kilometers in the park on a morning you don't want to do it. And there's something really beautiful about delving into the routines of these people and understanding that really it all just comes from such a place of like this self-belief that is so unwavered. Like if you ask any Olympian, what are you here to do? They're going to tell you, I'm here to win. You know, I didn't come here for silver. I came here for gold. And it's just such an inspiring attitude. And it's one that I think all of us could take a piece from and try to cultivate a little bit of that self-belief for ourselves. So, like I said, the most incredible part for me and in watching and getting to meet some of these athletes was, you know, the level of self-respect and respect for themselves that they have. It's completely awe-inspiring just to pick apart how much they care for themselves, the incredible protocols from speed to agility to power to mobility to recovery. Will I ever run a world record 5K? No, absolutely not. But I can unlock that self-respect and discipline and unwavering self-belief for myself. And so can you. So I wanted to start with a little saying from Greg Brandon, who's a quantum physicist. And this is something I've become really inspired by this year, which is quantum physics, which is the theory that everything sings and everything is moving and we're all just molecules. And anyway, the quote is, quantum science suggests the existence of many possible futures for each moment of our lives. Each future lies in a state of rest until it is awakened by choices made in the present. I read that in spring, and over summer I became completely entrenched in the world of quantum physics, which I won't go into in this episode. But the idea that, you know, we're just all molecules and how we move those molecules is what counts is fascinating. You know, we can rebuild, we can build, we can fall apart, we can get faster, we can get slower, but each future lies in rest until it is awakened by the choices made in the present is such a wonderful idea. You have millions of timelines ahead of you that you can unlock for yourself, whether that is to be an athlete or a physicist or a doctor or a loving mum or whatever it is you want for your life. Those timelines are there, and it's how you move your molecules now that puts you onto that timeline and onto that path. And that is just fantastic. Imagine I hadn't have opened the door and gone for a walk that day. I wouldn't be sat in a studio speaking to you. I wouldn't have gone to the Olympics. I certainly wouldn't be running marathons. I mean, just through one little act, I shifted my entire future onto a different timeline. And every athlete at the Olympics will be able to tell you probably of that one singular moment where they shifted their timeline onto the path of being at the Paris Olympics. And it literally gives me goosebumps thinking of that. Like, what was the moment that, Simone Biles, what was that moment that put her on the timeline to being the best in the world? And it can be as little as just cherishing a dear friend or, making a change for yourself. What was that little moment that put you on the path there? And that's the beautiful thing about our lives, is how we do have the power to move onto those different paths and on those different timelines. And I remember the first time I felt like an athlete, which was a really beautiful memory and moment. It was just a random morning in my old house, which I now look back and miss quite a lot because those were very good years. But it was just a random morning eating meal prep in my pants after my morning run. And I was checking my laptop for work updates with one hand, and I had my, I think, oats in the other. And I was already planning my evening session in my head while I was talking to clients, and I was kind of digesting the 10K I'd just run. And suddenly it hit me. I was training for a marathon and I was loving it, and I was behaving like an athlete. And only a few years ago, I couldn't get out of bed as it was so filled with food and grime and cigarettes. I mean, how incredible is that? I was so in that moment, and I was so in that prep, and it was beautiful, the change that had occurred. But I was acting like an athlete. And I think I've had so many moments where I've been, I think they call it locked in, but I'm not going to use that expression because it doesn't feel right. But I would call it maybe in flow, where it's just coming out of me and it feels so natural and normal. And you have those little moments where you sit up and you're thinking, I'm actually doing this. Oh, this morning, I didn't have a very good morning this morning. I felt a little bit sad. I was walking through my local park and I was stopped by a gorgeous girl who was on her morning run, and she said that she had started running because of me, and she was on her morning 5K. And I could see in her face when she told me, this was like 7:30 a.m., it was early, she couldn't quite believe she was on a morning 5K. She said she's lost 40 pounds. She's made a huge change in her life since finding the podcast. And we both had a little cry, obviously. But I said, yeah, look at you, just on a casual 5K in the morning. And I could tell that both of us were just like married in this experience of being in disbelief that we were doing something that a few years ago we could never imagine. And that for her is her athlete moment, is that 5K before work. And it was a gorgeous morning. The sun was beautiful this morning, and it was just a lovely moment. So, it's not a big, massive thing. It's not a huge marathon or a race or, a moment in athletics or a world record, but it could be that morning 5K before work that makes you feel like an athlete, and something that you should say to yourself, I am an athlete. This is my athlete. So today we're diving into a deeply transformative journey, unlocking your inner athlete and turning the weight of depression into obsession, in inverted commas, people, with growth, strength, and peak performance. And peak performance looks different to everyone. But this isn't just about fitness, it's about understanding how your body and mind can work together to unleash untapped potential. We can explore some scientific principles, emotional breakthroughs, and actionable steps to guide you from stagnation to elevation. So grab a notebook if you want, and we can get into this. The first thing I wanted to talk about is discovering your why. And your why is going to be the most important part of this whole journey. It's the reason why you're doing the things you want to do, and it's the reason why you want to do the hard things you're going to do. So the journey to becoming an athlete begins not with just one step, but with a spark, a reason that ignites your transformation. To create lasting change, you need to understand your why. There's no point in training for something if you don't know why you're doing it. So if we look at the science of this, studies in behavioral psychology reveal that intrinsic, meaning motivation that comes from within, that belongs to just you, doing something for the joy or personal fulfillment it brings is the strongest predicator of success. Your why could be the joy of movement, the thrill of competition, or even the pursuit of healing or stillness after emotional struggles. I don't know if I've spoken about my why on this podcast before. I probably have, but my why has always been and will always be freedom. That's always been the word that comes to mind when I think about why am I doing this? Why am I doing this when it's really hard? Why am I doing this? It's because I want the freedom to live as I choose. I want the freedom to leave my house without a second thought, without stress. I want the freedom of sobriety and what that brings me. I want the freedom from the trappings of a bad relationship with food or with my body. I just want to feel free, and that will always be my why. And when I feel in the mornings or evenings that I don't want to do the things that help me be free, I just remind myself, remember why you have wings, remember you can use them, and remember that everything you're doing is adding up to that moment. So if you want to have a little bit of an exercise, perhaps we could do this together while you're listening. Maybe not if you're running, please don't close your eyes while you're running. But if you are at home, or if you're running, maybe just, go into your mind's eye and have a moment of stillness here. But close your eyes and imagine yourself as the athlete that you desire, or the athlete that you imagine yourself to be, however that looks to you. Feel your strength, hear your heartbeat after a powerful workout. See the confidence in your posture. Let this image become vivid and very real. Neuroscience shows that visualization activates the same neural pathways as physical practice, meaning your mind is already paving the way for success. How cool is that? I know that athletes and all successful people, I would say, or the majority of successful people, use visualization and combine it with their physical practice to help them get results. And actually, studies have shown that it can improve performance by as much as 45%. How mad is that? Because we are our thoughts, and what you think is what you are. The same goes for rumination and negative spiraling. I'm going to be doing an episode all about rumination, bullying, and negative thoughts, episode after next. So we can delve a little bit more into that. But I think what is so important is remembering and realizing that in your mind's eye, the dreams and visions that you hold so dearly and so delicately in your hand are the things that you're going towards, and your body will naturally follow. For example, now, if I've asked you to do this exercise and you can't fathom or you can't feel any positive feeling for yourself, it's really important to ask yourself why, and, try your hardest to visualize the extraordinary and the impossible for yourself. For me, I think at the moment, I'd love to be back to running half marathons, and I'd love to do the London Marathon next year. That feels very, very, very far away for me at the moment. But, visualizing getting back to a race and holding a medal again and feeling free from stress, that is something I know that I'll get back to. And I'm visualizing that, and I'm visualizing feeling, like awake in the morning and full of energy. Those are things that I'm holding in my mind's eye, and I know that I'll come towards them because I can already see them. So they already exist. That's a timeline that is there for me. I just need to shake my molecules into the right path. A survey of Olympic athletes revealed that over 90% use some form of visualization techniques. And brain studies indicate that the same neural pathways are activated when a weightlifter lifts heavy weights and when they only imagine lifting. How cool is that? So it's like when I'm watching MMA and I'm actually doing Muay Thai, I'll be watching some of my favorite fighters and I get so hyped in my bedroom, like sparring, and I can feel my heartbeat going and I can, I'm really visualizing being in the fight. And it's probably my brain is doing the same things when I'm actually sparring, which is so cool. So write down your why if you can, have a little think about it. Keep it somewhere visible, like your mirror, your phone, your journal. And this should become an anchor on challenging days. I've written my why on lipstick, on mirrors. I've written it on the bathroom toilets of bars in Soho when I was like 1 foot in the wagon. I've written it everywhere, all over my house. It's so important to keep it there when you feel like you're forgetting your purpose or you're forgetting your reason for doing all of these things, because it can become easy to forget. It becomes, when it's hard and things feel hopeless or you're having bad moments, it becomes really easy to forget why we're doing what we're doing. So keep it close to yourself. And also remember your why doesn't need to be something as cheesy as freedom. It can be anything you want it to be. It can be like, I want to play with my grandkids when I'm older. Or, I mean, another one of my whys was having a dog. That was a big thing for me. Another why could be, I don't know, ability to say yes to your mates when they ask you out. That was also a big one. Summer is a huge why for me. Summer doesn't even cross my mind now, but it used to be such a headache. I mean, I wouldn't leave the house until midnight or sunset. I hated summer, hated. And now I know I have the freedom to enjoy summers like I always thought I would when I watched films or I watched my friends enjoy summers. And, it's so worth it for that, let me tell you. So becoming an athlete is not about achieving perfection. It's about mastering progress. And while I didn't want to delve into the exact protocols for you to, create like the perfect whatever it is, because we're all so different and we all require such different things, I do think there's kind of a little bit of a space for me to give a little bit of advice from someone who has just recovered from injury and a little bit of burnout. Things that I feel are non-negotiable for our regimes and things that have kept me at a level that is, I'd say, baseline, that I can kind of like build upon. And if I did ever want to do something extraordinary again, I know that I have that baseline thread, in there. And these are things that I just don't, no matter how, I mean, no, there were a few weeks there where there wasn't much getting out of bed happening, but if I had it my way, these are things that I would never, ever skip on. So talking about functional fitness, daily movement rituals is a big thing. So 20 minutes of intentional movement. That's all, people. That's all. Bodyweight exercises, walking, jogging, lifting weights at home. It really doesn't matter what it is, but that has got me through this period and has kept me fighting fit 20 minutes a day. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. 20 minutes is just a guideline. The other thing that I have attempted to sort of maintain or hold on to is the idea of progressive overload. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm getting faster and stronger every week, but it does mean that I'm slowly, gradually trying to increase the load on my body so that I'm having some sort of athletic development, which has been rather beautiful because, as I said in the last episode, watching everything crumble and fall down in front of me, including my running capabilities, meant that I was able to start again, and I'm able to have this wonderful moment now where I'm like a beginner and well, I'm not a beginner, but I'm able to get excited about a 10K. That's like challenging, and progressive overload for me is really realistic now, and I'm in that space where I'm starting to challenge myself again, and it's really exciting. And although so many of us are getting more and more advanced, I think we can progressively overload ourselves in other ways Maybe it's like spiritually, or it's in our mental health. You could go a whole day challenging negative thoughts, for example, rewriting the way that you speak to yourself, or perhaps like setting a boundary and not allowing people to overstep those boundaries. That can be another really good one. Or it could just be you run for 5 minutes, then you run for 6, then you run for 7. There are so many ways of progressively overloading, but they can be tiny, but these are measurable, trackable ways of improving yourself. And that's what I mean by overload. It's a way of challenging yourself and improving slowly, which is an important part of being an athlete. Nine Lives podcast is proudly sponsored by Pure Sport. As you know, rituals and routines have been a huge part of my own wellness journey and transformation, and I have been using their supplements since the very beginning. Things like their mushroom complex, magnesium, and the muscle balm have honestly changed the game when it comes to my recovery and performance. You can use the code 9lives at checkout for a discount. Thank you so much, Pure Sport, for sponsoring this podcast. So, recovery, which is so important because so many of us skip this part. And I can speak from experience when I tell you that recovery is just as important as the training. And I don't mean you need like all the fancy red lights and like, what are those gun things? I don't use any of that stuff. I'm a simple person, so I think that stretching and sleep are the two things that just are cornerstones, and also stress management as well. Things, just as small as just a 5 to 6 minute stretch in the mornings and evenings, being intentional about that space that you create for yourself can be really, really life-changing. But sleep is the thing that really, it is everything. I think there was a time this year where I was getting like 2 hours of sleep a night, and it's just killer. You can see there's a diagram that I will find that shows basically someone's sleep cross-linked with the inability to be rational in your day-to-day life. And it's so true. If I have had less than like 7 hours sleep, my ability to be rational about situations or make good decisions goes out the window. I simply cannot do it. And that's been really empowering in itself. I think that as I've got older, I've now realized, okay, I've had a bad night's sleep, and I can kind of know that I'm being cranky or I'm not making good decisions because of that. But things that you can do and things that I do to help my sleep, especially as someone who suffers from chronic anxiety, I do find that the night times, evening times, I love the evenings because I'm watching films with Joe and I feel distracted and I feel like in a really loving place. But when I then have to come and lie down in my bed when I'm alone with my thoughts, it can be a little bit of a scary time. I think that's when the rumination seems to get me the most. And I wanted to share with you a few things that I do that have really helped me during this time that I think could really help you too. For me, I've had to treat myself like a bit of a child and be really intentional with creating spaces that set me up for stress reduction. I think a lot of us don't realize, but without even knowing it, we're triggering ourselves constantly throughout our days with like micro stressors. Obviously, the big one, and I'm not going to go on about it because we've spoken about it so many times, is boundaries with social media. Please, please, if you're not already, download an app that blocks your social media, delete the apps off your phone, whatever you have to do, or do what I do, which is, I take full weeks offline, and if I have to for work, check on my desktop, because there's a link between your thumb, your brain, and your little monkey slot machine brain in your head that wants you to do this. And in the 2 weeks off that I had, where I did not look at social media once, I felt the most normal I've felt in a really long time. And I think that goes to show that we are obviously not built to process that amount of information in that short a space of time. So if you can, and this is my challenge to you, if you're someone with anxiety, rumination, or repetitive thoughts, or paranoia. I mean, that's been my biggest issue. Um, at least 2 hours before bed, try to switch your phone off. Not off, or just try to get the apps off. Please, by all means, text your mates, call your mum, do all those things. But I promise you're not missing out on anything. You don't need to know what someone had for supper. You certainly don't need to be comparing yourself to it. Imagine your brain is like a kind of wave like this. And every time you do something or you check something, it's like yanking up your stress like this, and you're going higher and higher and higher and higher. And these are things that you don't necessarily know are causing you stress, but then when you go to try to sleep, it's like someone's given you some coffee and your mind is just like going off the charts. So what I do, I mean, these are rules that work for me. I don't allow any social media 2 to 3 hours before I know I'm going to be in bed. You'd be hard pressed to find me scrolling on social media nowadays. Sometimes I feel like I have to try to do it more. But I do that, and then I create intentional space for calm. And what I mean by that is I'm someone who my mind and my brain, the knee-jerk reaction is to self-punish and be negative towards myself and ruminate on bad thoughts. So I have to create physical spaces in which I don't allow those to happen. So incense and candles are something that have really helped me. I know they seem like really small things, and for a while I didn't quite get it. I was like, what do you mean I'm light some incense and meditate? That's never going to work. But a physical, and this is something that I used to do with cigarettes, which is obviously not a good habit to have, but we've spoken all about my cigarettes and drink problem. But as much as they were destructive, at 5 p.m., I had a ritual that separated the workday or the stresses of the day from my evening and my space, my selfish space. So replacing that with things like lighting an incense, doing some journaling, or trying to be present with the person in your home, or trying to be present with yourself if you live alone. Creating that kind of mood and space to move into allows a little bit more of a sanctuary for you to set yourself up for better sleep. So those are things that have really helped me. And also waking up in the morning is a big one as well. The same thing goes for that. Like, don't try not to wake up and immediately stress yourself out with what's going on in your phone. I really notice the difference in my day when I've had my intentional morning and when I've had my unintentional morning. So, these are also things that no one's going to do for you. Unfortunately, I hate to tell you, friends, but no one's coming to save you. These are things you're going to have to be strict with yourself. The discipline that you have in your workouts, the discipline that you have in your fitness has to come into your boundaries with your sleep, with your mind, with the way you speak to yourself. These are things that I feel great joy when I'm able to unlock them. And it takes discipline. It does take discipline, but it matters, and you've got to try to make it matter for yourself. So I went off on one a bit there, but that's, sleep is so important. It's a performance enhancer, and research shows that deep sleep stages are when the body releases growth hormone, which is crucial for muscle repair and growth. Between 7 and 9 hours roughly nightly is a good thing to aim for. So fueling, we've had many episodes, and I'll do many episodes on fueling for performance, because I know that's a big one that people have been asking me when I asked you for topic suggestions. And while I won't delve into it too much, something that has really helped me throughout, especially this last year of being allergic to eggs and dairy and gluten and apples and garlic, the list goes on. Empowering yourself with the knowledge about what your body's doing and what your body needs is so, so important. I have a problem with medical people. I've always had like a little bit of medical fear, because every time I went to the doctor before, they would just tell me to lose weight and not listen to my issues. So I avoided the doctor, which is probably not great. But when I did eventually go, we have the lovely NHS in this country, so I'm very thankful for them. But I was able to have a food allergy test intolerances test and figure out what it was that was wrong. And turns out I was eating everything that was, well, I was allergic to. And I'm hoping to come back from it and be able to reintroduce these foods. What I'm trying to say is what works for me might not necessarily work for someone else. And even though I see scrambled eggs on toast on my feeds on Instagram, I'm actually allergic to those things. And so that's what was making me feel really bad. So you can optimize your nutrition through a little bit more of an empowered approach to it, and knowing that you don't have to be perfect with it, but you should try to at least ask yourself, like, what is it that I'm eating and how does it make me feel after I eat it? Another thing I've been doing, which I know people are, it's not like a wellness thing, but I've been having foods that I really enjoyed when I was a teenager, and I've been introducing those once a week. So I really loved Doritos and like loads of other snack foods that I think a lot of people would not necessarily put athleticism in these types of foods together. But every Friday I go to my big shop and we have something called snack night, where I just have the things that I like, and we sit and we snack and we watch Harry Potter. And I think that that's been a really lovely space, because it's kind of been like the anti-athlete, which is really important because perfectionism can also make you really sick. And I think deliberately being anti-perfect and anti-athlete like once a week, it kind of, I know I have that space for messiness, and it really, really helps in a way. Nutrition is so nuanced, and I'll try to get a nutritionist on as well so that we can have a little bit more of an in-depth chat about your questions. But the other thing I wanted to touch on is, and then I promise we're going to be done with all the physical stuff, hydration for performance. I had no idea how dehydrated I was at all times, pretty much, even though I was drinking a lot. I mean, it's crazy. Even mild dehydration can impair your athletic performance. So drinking water consistently throughout the day, electrolytes, I like the free sol ones. After an intense workout to replace lost minerals, super duper duper important. I had no idea just how dehydrated I was walking around. And I wish I could go back in time and tell myself that recovery and hydration and sleep are the cornerstones of improvement. And I don't think people would ever really understand just how important it is until you know that they're lacking, and then you start feeling not yourself, and then it all adds up and it spirals. So making sure you have a handle on those things is super, super important. Next up is resilience, and resilience is something that all athletes have, and everyone who wants to do something extraordinary or do something different is going to have to build. And your mind is the control center of your athletic journey, and training it is as vital as training your body. I wanted to explore some science on how you can intentionally help build your resilience and mental toughness. And I will preface this by saying, for those of you listening who think that you're not resilient or you're not a resilient person, the things that you've been through, and if you are someone who struggles with your mental health, the fact that you're still going and you're still getting up every day makes you resilient. And that is a transferable skill to athleticism or whatever it is that you're attempting to do through these protocols. I think a lot of people, again, that attitude of they're athletes and I'm not, I'm going through this and I have these issues and I struggle with this. But the fact that you make it through each day is building such a power within you that you can harness to do all of the things you want to do. And I wish I'd known that sooner, that my depression and living with depression all those years made me so much stronger when it comes to races and it comes to doing all the things I want to do. Because I've taken a few knocks, and when knocks come, it just feels a lot easier to deal with them. Okay, reframing. It's a big one. Reframing challenges as growth opportunities. When you encounter a tough workout or a setback in that workout or in life, consciously shifting your mindset to, instead of, I can't do this, you can say, this is making me stronger. Research in CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, shows that reframing negative thoughts can reduce anxiety and improve performance, which is a huge, huge thing. when I was training for the Paris Marathon, that time I tried to get fast and couldn't do it. I had a lot of really tough track workouts and a lot of really tough workouts in general. And I'd started falling into the trap of saying, I can't do this. This hurts too much. And I'm not able to hit the splits that my coach has given me. And I'm going to fail this marathon and I'm not going to get to the end. And I got into such a bad mind state with it. And off the back of Paris, I ended up running the London Marathon afterwards. But the difference was I just thought, well, I'll just run it to run it. And I'm not going to have like a big goal and I'm not going to do, any of this like tough, really tough work. And I ended up enjoying it way more because I wasn't seeing everything as a setback because it was just me being me. I wasn't like a walking failure anymore. I was just enjoying it for what it is. And I think so many of us like punish ourselves for the setbacks that we have that aren't necessarily setbacks. It could just be something in the universe telling you that your path is a little bit different, I think. Morning routines, which I have been asked about a lot as well. And I think this is something important when it comes to resilience. Mornings for me are 50-50. I think that's just goes with my mood disorder, but sometimes I'm like full of energy and up at 5:30 and out the door at 7 and loving life, or I'm finding it really hard to get out of bed. So I will say that there is a space for those of us who find it really hard to keep morning routines to not chastise yourself, please. Routines are difficult. Routines are hard. And for some of us, they don't work. For some of us, we prefer rituals, things that I know that I can grasp onto. Doesn't matter if it happens at 5 a.m. or 8 a.m. or perhaps 8 p.m. At least I know I'm going to brush my teeth and I'm going to try my hardest to get my vitamins in. But I will say, starting your day, like we spoke about earlier, with mindfulness, free from noise and distractions, is really, really life-changing. Some of us, I think, who do have those demons in our brains, it can be quite hard to catch them when we're distracted. And having a morning mindfulness, whether it's 5 to 10 minutes of meditation, and if you can't meditate because you find it hard to sit still, perhaps you can just sit and calmly breathe for 5 to 10 minutes. This calms the brain's focus center, which is called the amygdala, and it can help enhance your focus for the day. But I think as well, just having a space of stillness in the morning where you almost just allow those negative thoughts to come to the front of your mind and you give them a place to go, whether it's self-doubt or it's what people are saying or it's depressive thoughts, giving them a space to come to the forefront of your mind and observing them, but knowing that they aren't actually you and they're not actually true. And then letting them pass, I think, is a really beautiful way to start your day, because my go-to is negativity sometimes, and I just have to let them come forward so that I can observe them and then I can move past them. And that's a really lovely way to start your day. It's a big one in shadow work as well, to know that, there's a huge part of you that has a great darkness in it, and not ignoring it is a important part of building resilience and knowing that you are able to go after those dreams, with your shadow with you, because we all have dark thoughts, and allowing them to pass through and watch them, knowing that they aren't actually you, is a really beautiful way of working through them. So if you can, try to set out a few minutes in the morning to do that for yourself. So obviously journaling is a huge thing for me, and I know I go on and on about the power of written word, whether that's pen to paper or typing on your phone. I prefer analog everything, always writing things down in ink, because I just think it has a magical way of coming true when you write it down. Things like putting your goals, tracking your patterns, how you feel every day, helps you stay accountable. Or maybe just writing things you're grateful for. I know, oh my God, how many times are people going to say, keep a gratitude journal? But it really is true, even in the darkest moments where you do feel completely hopeless. I think I have a diary entry that says I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it would be my right foot, because I injured my left knee and my left foot And I remember like being on my kitchen floor and being like, you know what, I'm grateful for my right foot. And that was enough. I was like, well, I have, how incredible to be able bodied to have a foot. It's amazing. Okay. Now we're going to talk about turning consistency into obsession. Consistency is the secret to transforming effort into habit and habit into passion. When progress feels rewarding, it naturally turns into obsession. A healthy obsession with becoming the best version of yourself. And I can attest to this. I think a certain amount of obsession is healthy. When it goes over the top, like we discussed in last week's episode, or if you do start to feel any of those symptoms or warning signs, then of course the obsession goes too far. And it's a line that I'm still dancing across, and I think we all are. But that obsession and drive is life-changing. And going from depression to obsession is possible. You just have to lean into, it's like a giddy love for knowing that you're able to unlock new versions of yourself and new timelines for yourself, and knowing that every little step you take and every little shift you make puts you on a new path and drives you towards that person you want to be. And great change isn't something that happens overnight, and it's not certainly something that you can always measure. But I will say that there will be moments where one day you will wake up and you will feel completely different, and you'll think, oh my God, how did I get here? This is absolutely incredible. I cannot believe this. And then you'll be grateful for all of the tiny, mundane little changes that you made along the way, which is going to build the momentum that will change your life. But it's completely unextraordinary to the naked eye, and you won't notice it for yourself for a really long time. So knowing that, that athlete, thinking of the Paris Olympics and thinking of those Olympians, that mindset, it really, I can't tell you how it does belong to us all. That athlete, infallible, unshakable self-belief that you can unlock for yourself. I mean, I was watching these people on this track, and then we were lucky enough to meet some of the athletes and their family and friends, and they all had this like really similar like look in their eye when they were speaking about their performance, where I could just tell they just were like, I'm going to win, and I am a winner, and I was put on this earth to win. And I had goosebumps the whole time, because I was just thinking, my God, yeah, I'll never be at the Olympics in a way of competing, but my God, can I apply this to other parts of my life? And yes, I deserve to train like an athlete and sleep like an athlete, eat like an athlete, recover like one too, and speak to myself well and visualize. And yeah, that is for all of us. Like, it's just so inspiring. And to watch all of the people watching being so inspired. And, I think this is a bit abstract, but, just the fact that human beings created sport makes me want to cry, because, we're all just here for just such a short little dance on this planet. And we created running, and we created javelin throwing and high jumping and shooting and archery. We created that to express what our bodies are meant to do, which is move. We are born to move and born to express ourselves through that. And these individuals that dedicate their whole lives to becoming the best of the best in these sports that we created to express ourselves is just so inspiring. And, I hope that no matter what it is that you love, whether it's drawing little comic book characters, or, I don't know, helping out after school at a craft fair, or whatever your big love of life is, I hope that you go after it like an athlete, because you deserve to. Another thing to think about is leveraging accountability. Now, accountability can come in so many different forms, and it doesn't just have to be from yourself. There are people out there and communities out there who are just waiting to meet you and help you and be on your team. And the one thing about athletes is that they have teams, they have coaches, they have friends, they have partners, workout buddies, online fitness communities. Surrounding yourself with support can boost consistency. So make sure, or try to share your progress, it doesn't matter who with, and let them cheer you on. I think in our society today, there's such a lack of like people being proud of each other, I think, because it does always feel like a little bit of a competition. And it's important to find communities where you can say to someone, mate, you know what, this week I did 5 days where I woke up and I meditated for 5 minutes and I wasn't mean to myself and I brushed my teeth and I did all the things I promised myself I was going to do before 8 a.m. And someone says, hey man, I'm so proud of you. That is so huge. And that releases the chemicals in your body that makes you want to do it again. So try to find a team. This can be a local run club. It can be an online space. I mean, there are so many online spaces now that you can find like-minded people. You can DM me. I will always reply and I will always see your wins. I mean, it makes my day every day to see what you guys are up to. But you can find those communities, you know, and building a team around you that feels good to you, feels supportive. I think there's a whole piece in this around distancing yourself from people who laugh at your dreams or tell you you can't do things because you can do anything. Take it from me, you can. You know, not allowing those people to cloud your judgment or your self-belief is really important as well. Another point is to inject variety. So monotony can sometimes be the enemy of growth. Of course, if you are a single disciplined athlete like a runner, you're going to be doing a lot of running. Or if you're an Olympic lifter, you're going to be doing a lot of lifting. But there's ways to cross-train. And I would say recently for me, something that's completely saved my relationship with fitness is starting martial arts, something that I never thought I would be sat on this podcast saying. I always thought it's only ever going to be running for me. That's it. That's my life. That's my purpose. It's all I want to do. But I fell slightly out of love with it. And I'm not ashamed to say that because there is no variety in it. And I'd lost the poetry in it. I'd lost the stillness. It wasn't giving me what I wanted. And I thought, well, instead of, you know, throwing in the towel completely with fitness, why don't I try something new? And for me, it was Muay Thai. But for you, it could be tennis or it could be swimming or it could be anything. I think having that brazen belief, being a little bit of an embarrassed beginner can unlock new doors. And it does mean now that I have martial arts, I've reignited my love for running because Muay Thai fighters always run in the mornings and then they do Muay Thai in the evenings. And it's given me a whole new way of looking at fitness and a whole new level of discipline that I didn't think I could ever unlock. But that's just through variety. So that's through trying something new and being a beginner and being really embarrassed. I mean, oh my gosh, if I think about the first time I walked into a ring, because martial arts is really intimidating. It's not like running where it was such a private space in the woods and you can go and do it alone. You have to have a coach and you've got to really embarrass yourself in front of a load of really experienced dudes. But I did it and yeah, I just completely fell back in love with my passion for sports. So variety can sometimes be something that saves you from the monotony. And, you know, monotony is a part of it. There are going to be runs you don't want to go on that you have to go on. And you'll always find a little gem and a piece of treasure in each one of them, even if they feel really boring. But try to mix it up a little bit here and there. Just remember that fitness is meant to be fun as well. To end, I'm going to say one of the most important parts is rewarding your effort. So positive reinforcement really works. After completing a tough workout, treat yourself to something enjoyable like a long bath, a healthy snack, or an unhealthy snack, whatever you feel like, or time with a favorite book. I'm really reward focused, super reward focused. I've learned that. So things as little as I know, you know, I'm got quite a big day today. I know that this evening I'm going to have half an hour in the bath listening to some audiobooks. And then Joe and I are going to cook together. And that is like in my brain when I'm doing the things I need to do today because I'm working towards a reward. Of course, in races, the reward is the medal, which is obviously a big thing. But medals don't just have to be medals. The most powerful medals are the ones that feel the most comforting and comfortable to you. You could even make little medals or you could get little medal stickers and stick them on your diaries. You know, I think it's really cool to be quite brazen about being proud of yourself and giving yourself space to really be like, man, that was hard and I did it anyway. So make sure you give yourself that positive reinforcement, and you don't need anyone to give it to you. I think a lot of these journeys are private ones, and that's okay too. And it's okay to just be the only one at the end of the day that can say, well done. I had many, many months of being alone and being that person who is just a little lonely and looking in the mirror at the end of the day saying, you didn't have a drink today, and I know at 6 p.m. you wanted that cigarette and you didn't do it. Actually, you went to the park instead. And that's really cool, man. Well done. I think more of us could do better by being nicer to ourselves. So make sure you give yourself that positive reinforcement. So unlocking your inner athlete isn't about reaching a destination. It's about falling in love with the process. It's about using the tools of science and the power of emotion to reclaim your strength and purpose. Each step, no matter how small, brings you closer to your best self. So what will your first step be? Whether it's committing to a 10-minute workout, or journaling, or just believing in your potential, you can take that step today. If this episode inspires you, you can share it with someone who needs it. Don't forget to subscribe to 9 Lives on all the platforms and leave a 5-star review if you can. I'll end on a poem today. It's one of my favorites. It's by Keats. Actually, this is my mum's favorite poem, and it's called To Hope. When by my solitary hearth I sit, and hateful thoughts enwrap my soul in gloom, when no fair dreams before my mind's eyes flit, and the bare heath of life presents no bloom, sweet hope, ethereal balm upon me shed, and wave thy silver pinions o'er my head, whenever I wander at the fall of night, where woven boughs shout out the moon's bright ray. Should sad despondency my musings fright, and frown to drive fair cheerfulness away, peep with the moonbeams through the leafy roof, and keep that fiend despondence far aloof. Should disappointment, parent of despair, strive for her son to seize my careless heart, when, like a cloud, he sits upon the air, preparing on his spellbound prey to dart, chase him away, sweet hope, with visage bright, and fright him as the morning frightens night. Whenever the fate of those I hold most dear tells my fearful beast a tale of sorrow, O bright-eyed hope, my morbid fancy cheer, let me awhile thy sweetest comforts borrow, thy heaven-born radiance around me shed, and wave thy silver pinions o'er my head. Should ever unhappy love my bosom pain from cruel parents or relentless fare, oh, let me think it is not quite in vain to sigh out sonnets to the midnight air. Sweet hope, ethereal balm upon me shed, and wave thy silver pinions o'er my head. In the long vistas of the years to roll, let me not see our country's honour fade. Oh, let me see our land retain her soul, her pride, her freedom, and not her freedom's shade. From thy bright eyes unusual brightness shed, beneath thy pinions canopy my head. Let me not see the patriot's high bequest, great liberty, how great in plain attire, with the base purple of a court oppressed, bowing her head and ready to expire. But let me see thee stoop from heaven on wings that fill the skies with silver glitterings. And as, in sparkling majesty, a star glids the bright summit of some gloomy cloud, frightening the half-veiled face of heaven afar, so when the dark thoughts of my boding spirit shroud, sweet hope, celestial influence round me shed, waving thy silver pinions o'er my head. Bit of a longer poem, but it's a beautiful one. I have always loved this one. Anything to do with hope, I adore. So thank you for listening, guys. Until next week, loads of love.